Hey guys, tonight we're filming from my house, so the lighting's a little bit different, the angle's a little bit different, so just kind of bear with me so that we can get through this. But one of the things that we're going to be looking at tonight is Roanoke Island and the Lost Colony, which are big in American history and of course huge in North Carolina because Roanoke Island is part of the North Carolina coastline. So the guiding question I want you to keep in mind for this presentation and then the other presentations that we're going to be following up with this week is why weren't the first colonization attempts by the English successful? And I put the little "un" in there because they were unsuccessful. But I want you to be thinking about what were some of the problems that those English colonies faced during the late 1500s and the early 1600s. So Roanoke Island, the Lost Colony, Sir Walter Raleigh, who we've already talked about, was one of Queen Elizabeth's favorite people. And so he asked her if it was okay for him to charter a colony in the New World. She did give him permission to do so, but told him that he himself was not allowed to go to the New World, that other people had to go in his place. A lot of historians believe that's because Queen Elizabeth and Sir Walter Raleigh had a thing going on. So he did get that charter, allowing him to go settle in that new land and to begin a colony in that new land. So there were two attempts. The first attempt, obviously not very successful, is in 1585. First time that the English are going to try to start a colony. It became the first English colony in the United States, despite the fact that it was really unsuccessful. It failed because the people didn't bring enough supplies and they weren't really ready for what was going on in the New World. The first attempts at colonization, and you'll see this even in Jamestown, the citizens who went, the English citizens who went, were not farmers and hunters, but they were people who really didn't have any kind of skills. So the people were hungry. They depended on the Native Americans. The Native Americans did not like the fact that the English were depending on them for food and then also for that land. So the majority of the people that settled in that colony ended up going back to England, and they left about 15 people behind. And those 15 people were never found again. And John White and some other people believe that they were killed by the Native Americans. So the second attempt was in 1587. He sends a second round of colonists behind. This time he sends women and children with them in the hopes that women and children would help to make a better permanent civilization. It would make those men want to stay there. So his daughter actually had, or his granddaughter was born, Virginia Dare, on August 18th, and she was the first baby born in the New World. So there was a lot of encouragement and people felt really good about it, but John White had to go back to England to get some more supplies. So as he's going back to England, King Philip declares war on the English Navy. So John White gets wrapped up in that, and he was not able to sail back to the New World, so he had to stay in England for 3 years. So finally, 3 years later, the Spanish lost. The English Army or the English Navy experienced success. Two reasons that the English Navy experienced that success was because that they had better, quicker ships, and a storm happened to ruin the remainder of the Spanish fleet. So John White takes the first ship he can out of England 3 years after he had gone back for supplies. He goes back to the site at Roanoke and realizes that the people are not there. And the only things he finds are the words Croatoan written on one of the trees, and then C-R-O and a cross on one of the posts of the fortress. Now he had told those settlers to carve that cross in that pole just to show that they were okay. So he believed that they were okay and that they maybe had just had to move somewhere. So he went to go look for them at Croatoan Island and tried to find them with the Croatoan tribe, but he was forced to return back to England because a hurricane hit the area, and then he was never able to return. And historians kind of debate whether he blamed the Native Americans or blamed other situations on that colony being lost. But what we're going to do tomorrow in class is look at the different stories that are a part of the lost colony, so that you can maybe have a better idea of what you think happened to the lost colony. So keep these notes in mind, and I'll see y'all in class tomorrow.